My name is Daphne Hale. I'm 38 years old. I work as a logistics coordinator for a regional shipping company. It's not glamorous. It's spreadsheets, deadlines, shipment delays, and predictable hours. The kind of job where consistency matters more than charisma. I used to believe my marriage worked the same way. Show up, do your part, don't rock the boat, and things stay intact. My husband and I had been together for 12 years, married for 9. Our 10th wedding anniversary was coming up next month, but the date we always celebrated, the one we called our day, was the anniversary of our first date. Pasta, cheap red wine, a cramped Italian restaurant where we talked until the staff stacked chairs around us. We'd marked that day every year without fail. Last Tuesday was that day. I left work early with a small bouquet resting on the passenger seat, something I'd picked up out of habit more than excitement. I had a reservation at the same Italian place. I'd even bought him a bracelet on my lunch break. Nothing extravagant. About $400. Silver, simple, engraved on the inside with our initials. I remember thinking it felt right. Thoughtful. Familiar. Things had been tense lately. Not explosive. No screaming matches or slammed doors. Just a constant tightness. Like something stretched too far but not quite snapping. I told myself it was normal. Marriages have seasons. Rough patches pass. When I walked into the house, the kitchen lights were already on. He was sitting at the table. No greeting. No smile. No movement at all, except for his hand resting near a half-full glass of red wine. In front of him sat a white envelope, placed carefully, like paperwork waiting for review. "Happy anniversary," I said, lifting the flowers slightly. He didn't take them. Instead, he slid the envelope across the table toward me. "Open it." The word landed heavier than it should have. I hesitated, then set the flowers down on the counter. The stems made a soft, hollow sound against the granite. I sat across from him and opened the envelope. Inside were 3 pages. Typed, single-spaced, printed front and back. At the top of the first page, bolded and centered, was a title. 100 Things Wrong with You. I looked up at him, searching his face for a crack, for a smile, a hint of sarcasm, anything that would tell me this was a joke gone too far. He just watched me, calm, expectant. He took a slow sip of his wine. "Read it," he said. So I did. The first few items were small, almost absurd. "You chew too loud. You leave cabinet doors open. You fold towels wrong." I felt my shoulders loosen slightly. Petty complaints, annoyances, the kind of things people argue about and move past. Then the tone shifted. "You'll never be as successful as my father. I settled for you. You embarrass me in public." I kept reading. He didn't interrupt, didn't explain. Just sat there, eyes fixed on me, watching. By item 20, my chest felt hollow. By item 34, my hands were no longer steady. "You never really made me get hard." I paused there, not because it was shocking, but because of how casually it was written. No anger, no heat, just a blunt, humiliating assessment, typed cleanly in black ink. I kept going. "Your anxiety makes you pathetic. You cry during movies like a child." Item 58 made my vision blur. "Your mother's death wasn't that sad. She was sick for years. Get over it." I didn't look up. I didn't react. I just turned the page. Item 91 sat near the bottom of the last sheet. "I only married you because my ex-girlfriend got engaged first." That one explained more than he probably intended. I read all 100. It took about 15 minutes. The house was quiet except for the hum of the refrigerator and the faint clink of ice in his glass. When I finished, I stacked the pages neatly and placed them back on the table. I noticed how steady my hands were. That terrified me more than shaking would have. He leaned back slightly, like he was bracing for a reaction. "Well," he said. I stood up without answering and walked down the hall to my home office. "That's it?" he called after me. "You're not going to say anything?" I didn't respond. I opened a drawer, took out a blank index card, and wrote one thing on it. Then I returned to the kitchen and placed the card in front of him. He read it and laughed. A short, incredulous laugh, like I'd told a joke he didn't think was very funny. "What is this supposed to be?" he asked. "You think you're being clever?" "I filed for divorce 3 weeks ago," I said evenly. "You'll be served tomorrow." The laughter stopped. His face moved through disbelief, irritation, and panic in the span of a few seconds. "You're bluffing." "I'm not. You can't just... This is insane." "I consulted a lawyer the day after your sister's birthday dinner," I said, "when you told everyone at the table that I was barely adequate as a wife." His mouth opened, then closed again. "I've been documenting everything since then," I continued. "Dates, messages, witnesses." He stood up so fast his wine glass tipped over. Red liquid spread across the white tablecloth, seeping into the fabric like a stain that wouldn't come out. "You can't do this," he said, voice rising. "We haven't even tried counseling." "You just handed me 100 reasons you think I'm worthless," I said. "On our anniversary, with wine already poured." I turned and walked toward the bedroom. He followed, still talking, accusing me of being emotionally unavailable, of running away from conflict, of proving him right. I packed a small bag, just enough for a few days. "Where are you going?" he demanded. "A hotel tonight," I said. "The papers will explain the temporary arrangements." "You'll come back," he said as I reached the door. "You always do. You're too weak to actually leave." I didn't answer. I closed the door behind me. The hotel room smelled faintly of bleach and something floral trying to cover it. I stood just inside the door for a moment, shoes still on, bag on the floor, listening to the silence settle. No hum of our refrigerator, no clink of ice in his glass, no voice waiting to fill the space. I sat on the edge of the bed and finally let myself breathe. Not cry, not yet, just breathe. My phone buzzed once on the nightstand. I didn't look at it. I already knew who it was. Instead, my mind kept replaying the list. Not the worst lines, but the rhythm of it, the way it had been organized, numbered, curated, like he'd been collecting grievances for years, polishing them, deciding which ones deserved a place on paper. That was the part that wouldn't let go. This wasn't a fight that got out of hand. It wasn't anger spilling over. It was preparation. My phone buzzed again, then again. I picked it up, scrolled past the missed calls, and set it face down. The lawyer had warned me about this phase. Once control slips, the noise gets louder, she'd said. Don't engage. Document. So I opened my laptop and did exactly that. I typed out what had happened. The date, the time, the envelope, the list, his laughter, his exact words when I told him I'd filed. I attached photos I'd taken of the pages before leaving. Every insult preserved, every number clear. I emailed the file to my attorney and shut the laptop. Only then did the exhaustion hit. I slept badly. Short, fractured stretches. Every time I drifted off, another line from the list surfaced, sharp and uninvited. By morning, my jaw ached from clenching it. At 9:17 a.m., my phone lit up again. Him. "This is a joke, right?" I didn't respond. Him. "We need to talk. Call me." Then, minutes later, "You're being ridiculous. Come home so we can discuss this like adults." The progression was almost textbook. Denial to authority. Calm to condescension. By noon, the tone shifted. "Fine. Be childish. But you're not getting anything in this divorce." I forwarded the messages to my lawyer and muted the thread. At 2:03 p.m., a new notification appeared. "Mother-in-law. Voicemail." I let it ring out. Her voice, when I listened later, was tight with rehearsed disappointment. "I don't know what my son did to deserve this," she said. "After everything we've done for you. The wedding alone cost us over $30,000. You owe this family more than running away over a silly argument." A silly argument. I saved the voicemail, forwarded it, didn't call back. Thursday came and went. I went to work. I answered emails. I sat in meetings and nodded at the right moments while my life quietly reconfigured itself underneath me. Friday morning, I went down to the hotel lobby for coffee. That's when I saw her. My sister-in-law stood near the front desk, arms crossed, eyes already locked on me. She didn't bother with pleasantries. "What the hell is wrong with you?" she said, loud enough that the clerk glanced over. "Good morning to you too," I replied. "Don't get cute," she snapped. "My brother is devastated. He's been a mess for days. You need to go home and fix this." I took my coffee from the barista, steadying my hands around the cup. "Did he show you the list?" I asked. She frowned. "What list?" "The one he gave me on our anniversary," I said. 100 things he thinks are wrong with me, including that he only married me because his ex-girlfriend got engaged first. Her mouth opened, closed. "That," she started, then stopped. "That's just venting. Couples do that." "Do they?" I asked. "Do they type it out, single-spaced, number it, and hand it over with wine already poured?" She didn't answer. "I've been documenting his behavior for weeks," I continued. "This wasn't one bad night, it was confirmation." "Documenting," she repeated, like the word tasted wrong. "It means I have records," I said. "Screenshots, dates, witnesses, every time he's humiliated me in public, like your birthday dinner." Her face flickered with something that might have been recognition, or guilt. "Tell him to get a lawyer," I said. "Mine will be in touch." I walked past her toward the elevators. She didn't follow. That weekend was quiet. Too quiet. I toured apartments, signed nothing, took notes. Smaller than the house. Quieter. Mine. Sunday afternoon, another message came through. This one's softer. I shouldn't have given you that list. I was frustrated. I've been unhappy for a long time and handled it wrong, but filing without talking to me first is extreme. Can we just have a conversation? No lawyers, no drama, just us. For a moment, just one, I felt the old reflex twitch, the part of me trained to smooth things over, to doubt my own reactions. Then I remembered item 78. You're gullible. It's embarrassing how easy you are to manipulate. I screenshotted the message, sent it to my lawyer. Then I replied once, and only once. All communication through attorneys going forward. He didn't write back. That silence told me more than any apology ever could. The papers were served on Thursday morning. I knew the exact time without being told, because my phone started vibrating nonstop just after 10. I didn't answer. I was sitting at my desk at work, an open spreadsheet on my screen, numbers blurring together as the notifications stacked up silently in the corner. I watched them appear, disappear, reappear, like proof that something irreversible had crossed from theory into reality. At 10:12 a.m., the first message came through. This is a joke, right? At 10:18, we need to talk, answer your phone. At 10:26, you can't seriously be doing this. I kept my hands on the keyboard, finished the report I was working on, sent it off. Only then did I forward the messages to my lawyer and mute the thread again. By early afternoon, he'd escalated. You're overreacting. You always do this. Come home so we can sort it out like adults. That line, like adults, used to work. It framed me as irrational, emotional, unreasonable. It made me doubt myself just enough to soften. This time it landed flat. At 3:40 p.m., my attorney emailed to confirm service was complete. Everything was proceeding as planned. I felt an unexpected sense of calm. That evening, my phone rang again. A different number. I let it go to voicemail. His mother's voice filled the room a few minutes later, tight and controlled, like she was choosing every word carefully. I don't understand how you could do this to my son, she said. He's heartbroken. After everything we welcomed you into this family for, you're throwing it away over something so unnecessary. Unnecessary. You know, she continued, relationships take work. You don't just walk away when things get uncomfortable. I saved the voicemail, sent it to my lawyer, didn't reply. The first letter from his lawyer arrived the following week. Heavy paper, expensive letterhead. The kind of stationery meant to intimidate before you even read the words. I sat at the small kitchen table in my temporary apartment and opened it carefully, like it might cut me. The tone was aggressive from the first paragraph. It accused me of abandoning the marital home, claimed I'd acted impulsively, demanded that I continue paying the mortgage, utilities, and what it called customary lifestyle expenses while the divorce proceeded. I did the math once. The amount they were asking for would have taken nearly my entire paycheck. I didn't panic. I forwarded the letter to my attorney and waited. Her response came an hour later. We expected this, don't worry, we're ready. 2 days after that, his mother called my parents. I found out when my phone rang late that night and my mom's name lit up the screen. She sounded confused more than angry. His parents called us, she said. They're saying you walked out, that you're refusing to communicate, that you blindsided him. I leaned back in my chair and closed my eyes. I didn't blindside anyone, I said. I reacted to something he put in writing. There was a pause. Can you send me what he gave you? She asked quietly. I hesitated for half a second. Then I sent her photos of the list, all 3 pages. She didn't speak for a long time. I never liked the way he talked to you, she said finally. I told myself it was teasing, that you were strong enough to handle it. I swallowed. At Christmas 2 years ago, she continued, when he called you useless in front of everyone and laughed, I should have said something. It's okay, I said, and I meant it. I should have listened to myself sooner. My dad took the phone then. His voice was steady, clipped. I'm proud of you, he said. If you need money for the lawyer, you tell me. I sat there after we hung up, phone in my lap, letting that sentence settle. It meant more than he probably realized. The next escalation came fast. I was at work when HR called me into a conference room. The representative looked uncomfortable, apologetic even, but professional. Someone contacted us with concerns about your mental health, she said carefully. They suggested you might be a danger to yourself or others. I didn't ask who. I already knew. Company policy required a wellness check, documentation from a licensed mental health professional before I could return to work. Until then, I was placed on temporary leave. She apologized. She really did. But apologies don't erase implications. I walked out of the building with my badge still clipped to my bag and sat in my car for a long time before starting the engine. Anger came later. First came clarity. I called my lawyer from the parking lot. "This is harassment," she said immediately, "and it's sloppy." Then I called my therapist. Yes, my therapist. The one my husband had mocked for years. The one he'd called indulgent, unnecessary, proof that I was too sensitive. Within 48 hours, my therapist provided a formal letter. Clear, direct, clinical. I was dealing with stress related to divorce proceedings. I showed no signs of crisis, no ideation, no danger to myself or others. HR cleared me to return to work the same day they received it. They apologized again. But something had shifted. The seed had been planted. I added the incident to my file. My lawyer didn't mince words. "This shows bad faith," she said, "and a willingness to weaponize institutions when he doesn't get his way." The pressure spread outward after that. His cousin sent me a message on LinkedIn. LinkedIn! A long paragraph about tearing families apart, about loyalty, about how I should think carefully before throwing away something so many people depended on. I didn't respond. Screenshot, date, time, filed. Then came messages from his friends. People I'd smiled at over dinners. Women who'd hugged me at holidays. Suddenly, they all had opinions. "He's struggling. Marriage takes work. You should at least hear him out." I responded to exactly one. "Did he show you the list?" There was no reply. By the time mediation was scheduled, my file was thick. Not just with cruelty, but with patterns. And for the first time since this started, I felt something shift inside me. This wasn't just about leaving. It was about being able to prove why. Mediation was scheduled for the following Tuesday. I prepared for it like I was going into surgery. Methodical, detached, focused on survival rather than outcome. My lawyer and I met the day before. She spread everything out across the conference table. Printed emails, screenshots, transcripts of voicemails, witness statements, dates highlighted, names underlined, patterns made visible. "The list is your anchor," she said, tapping the stack of papers. "It contextualizes everything else." I nodded. By then, I knew that list by heart. The morning of mediation, I arrived early. The building was quiet, all beige walls and soft lighting meant to calm people down before they said unforgivable things to each other. I sat in the waiting area with my purse on my lap, spine straight, breathing slow. He arrived 10 minutes late, with his lawyer and his mother. She spotted me immediately, her mouth tightening as if she'd been preparing a speech. She moved toward me, but the mediator intercepted her before she reached the room. "I'm sorry," the mediator said politely but firmly. "Only the parties and their attorneys are allowed." His mother's eyes flicked to me, sharp with accusation, before she sat down hard in one of the chairs, arms crossed. The door closed behind us. The first hour was about assets. The house had about $80,000 in equity. I proposed selling it and splitting the proceeds evenly. Clean. Final. He wanted to keep it. His lawyer argued that I should buy him out of his half, $40,000 I didn't have. When that failed, they pivoted. "She abandoned the marital home," his lawyer said. "That forfeits her claim." My lawyer didn't raise her voice. "She left due to documented emotional abuse," she said, sliding the first exhibit across the table. "This is not abandonment." The mediator listened, took notes, asked questions. Then she turned to him. "Is it true you gave your wife a written list of 100 criticisms on your anniversary?" His lawyer started to speak. The mediator held up a hand. "I'd like to hear from him directly." He shifted in his chair. "It was a communication exercise," he said. "Something I read about. Writing down frustrations helps process them." "And you gave this list to your wife?" the mediator asked. "Yes." "On your anniversary?" "Yes." "Was the exercise intended to be shared with your partner?" she asked calmly. "Or was it meant for personal reflection?" Silence. Then quieter, personal. The mediator nodded and wrote something down. That was when I felt it. The shift. The second hour went worse for him. His lawyer tried to frame me as emotionally distant, withdrawn, uncommunicative, someone who'd checked out of the marriage years ago. Classic reversal. My lawyer countered with the timeline. Christmas dinner 3 years ago. Him calling me his biggest disappointment in front of both families. A dinner party last spring. Him laughing that I was basically furniture that occasionally pays bills. A text from 8 months ago. I don't know why I'm still married to someone so mediocre. 37 documented incidents over 3 years. "This is not a bad week," my lawyer said evenly. "It's a pattern." His lawyer's jaw tightened. He clearly hadn't been given the full story. By the end of the session, we had agreements. The house would be sold. The equity split 50-50. No spousal support. When the mediator recommended it, my husband's face went red. "This is insane," he said. "I gave her 9 years of my life." You both contributed to this marriage, the mediator replied calmly. But the documented behavior suggests you may have contributed to its breakdown. In the hallway afterward, his mother was waiting. I hope you're happy, she said. You've destroyed my son's life. I looked at her steadily. He handed me a list calling me worthless, I said. He mocked my dead parent. He tried to get me fired by claiming I was mentally unstable. Her lips pressed together. He was venting, she said. Women do that. You should be able to handle honesty. 100 insults typed out, given as an anniversary gift, I said. Is that normal venting in your family? She didn't answer. She grabbed his arm and pulled him toward the elevator. He looked back at me once. I expected anger. What I saw was confusion, like he genuinely didn't understand how this had happened, how the wife he'd labeled gullible and easy to manipulate had left and stayed gone. The second mediation session felt different the moment I walked in. Less posturing, less confidence on his side. He still arrived with his lawyer, still avoided looking directly at me, but the energy had shifted. The certainty he'd carried into the first session, the belief that pressure and noise would force me back into line, was gone. This time the mediator started with behavior. Before we finalize anything, she said, looking between us, there are additional concerns that have been raised since our last meeting. She didn't look at me when she said it. She looked at him. My lawyer slid a thin folder across the table. Not thick, not dramatic, just enough. The HR report, she said calmly. The LinkedIn messages. The third-party contacts attempting to influence proceedings. His lawyer stiffened. These are unrelated, he said quickly. My client was acting out of concern. Concern, the mediator repeated, making a note. Or retaliation? Silence. I watched his jaw tighten. The same way it used to when he realized a conversation wasn't going the way he'd planned. The mediator continued. Attempting to interfere with a spouse's employment during active divorce proceedings is serious, she said. It speaks to intent. His lawyer leaned in, lowered his voice, tried to regain control of the room. We're here to resolve property and support, he said, not litigate feelings. My lawyer didn't raise her voice. This isn't about feelings, she said. It's about conduct. The discussion returned to assets, but the tone had changed. The house was already under contract, inspection complete, closing scheduled. There would be no delays. Then spousal support came up again, briefly. His lawyer tried one last time. My client reduced his earning potential during the marriage to support her career, he said. That's inaccurate, my lawyer replied. He worked full-time the entire marriage. So did she. Their incomes were comparable. Any reduction in hours was voluntary and against her advice. The mediator nodded. No spousal support, she said, for either party. That was it. No drama, no raised voices, just a sentence that landed with finality. I felt something loosen in my chest. At the end of the session, the mediator summarized the agreement. House sale. Equal split of equity. Each party keeps their own retirement accounts. No ongoing financial obligations. She looked at both of us. Do you understand and accept these terms? I do, I said. He hesitated, just long enough to be noticeable. Then, yes. In the hallway afterward, his mother was there again. She always was. This isn't over, she said quietly as I passed. You think you've won, but you've ruined everything. I stopped, turned. I didn't ruin anything, I said. I responded. She stared at me, lips pressed thin. I walked past her and didn't look back. That night, I slept through until morning. No dreams, no jolting awake, no rehearsing arguments in my head. Just sleep, the kind I hadn't had in years. The divorce was finalized 6 weeks later. Quicker than I'd expected, honestly. When both parties agree, however grudgingly, the court doesn't linger. The final hearing was brief, almost procedural. The judge reviewed the mediated agreement, asked a few routine questions, and signed off without looking up for long. My ex-husband didn't look at me once. His lawyer did all the talking. Efficient. Detached. Like this was just another case file being closed. His mother sat in the gallery, rigid and watchful, as if she were attending a trial for something much worse than a marriage ending. When it was over, they left through a side exit. I didn't follow. I didn't need closure from them. The house sold 3 weeks later, slightly above asking. After the mortgage, fees, and closing costs, I walked away with just under $40,000. Not life-changing money, but enough to furnish my apartment, pay off my car, and put something aside for the first time in years without asking permission or justifying it. He received the same amount. From what I heard through mutual acquaintances, he was furious. He'd expected to keep the house, expected spousal support, expected me to be so conflict-averse that I'd concede just to make everything stop. His father had even offered to buy me out at one point, an attempt to keep the house in the family. My lawyer advised against it immediately. Taking their money gives them leverage, she said, and you don't need it. So I declined. They were not pleased. The silence afterward was almost absolute. His family cut off contact entirely, which was a relief. We'd never truly shared a social world anyway. He'd always preferred his people. I realized slowly that I hadn't lost much. A few mutual friends reached out, quietly, cautiously. One woman admitted she'd witnessed him mock me at a party the year before and felt uncomfortable but hadn't known what to say. I should have said something, she told me. That wasn't teasing. It was cruel. I thanked her. Even if it was late, it mattered. Financially, things were tighter. Divorce isn't cheap, even when it's straightforward. Legal fees took a significant chunk of my savings. My apartment cost more than my half of the mortgage ever had. I was rebuilding from a smaller base than before. But I was rebuilding. From what I heard, the aftermath hadn't been smooth for him either. His mother told anyone who would listen that I'd abandoned her son, that I'd destroyed his life without warning. But the story about the list got out. I didn't spread it. I didn't have to. Someone always talks. And the sympathy she expected didn't materialize the way she'd hoped. His sister reached out once, about a month after everything was finalized. Not to apologize exactly, just to say she understood why I'd left, and that she'd always thought the way he spoke to me was wrong. Too little, too late, but I thanked her for saying it. I was done collecting apologies. The quiet that followed felt unfamiliar at first. Not empty, just unclaimed. No messages waiting, no accusations disguised as concern. No constant low-grade tension humming beneath every ordinary moment. My days became smaller, slower, and strangely more mine than they'd ever been. I kept going to therapy, not because I was falling apart, but because I wanted to understand why I'd stayed as long as I had, why I'd learned to minimize comments that cut, why I'd accepted contempt and told myself it was honesty, why it took a typed list of 100 insults to finally force me to act. The answers weren't flattering. They were necessary. One afternoon, a few weeks after the divorce was final, I reread the list. Not out of masochism, out of clarity. I wanted to be sure I hadn't exaggerated it in my memory, that shock hadn't sharpened it unfairly, that I hadn't built a narrative around one terrible moment and ignored everything else. If anything, it was worse than I remembered. With distance, I noticed the details I'd missed the first time. The references to private conversations, the way vulnerabilities I'd shared in moments of trust had been repackaged into weapons, the precision of it all. That list wasn't frustration. It was a confession, a 100-item admission that he didn't respect me, that he hadn't in a long time, maybe never. That realization settled something inside me. I stopped wondering if I'd overreacted. I stopped imagining alternate versions where I'd said the right thing, responded more calmly, tried harder. Partners don't tell each other they settled. They don't mock grief. They don't disguise cruelty as feedback and call it love. The final message came from an unknown number. I recognized the tone immediately. I hope you know you ruined both our lives. I was trying to help you see your flaws so you could improve. That's what partners do. You couldn't handle honesty. Now we're both alone. I read it once, screenshotted it, then blocked the number. At my next therapy session, I showed it to my therapist. He read it quietly, then looked up. He's still reframing, he said. Notice how cruelty becomes honesty, how control becomes concern. It's easier to believe you're too sensitive than to admit he's capable of harm. That helped, because there was still a part of me, the part he'd spent years shaping, that wondered if maybe I should have stayed. If maybe leaving had been extreme, if maybe the list hadn't been that bad. It was, exactly as bad as I remembered. I didn't keep the list. That's with my lawyer's files now. But I did keep one thing from that night, the index card, the one with my lawyer's number written on it, not as a trophy, as a reminder. Sometimes the most powerful response isn't an argument. Sometimes it's one sentence. Sometimes it's action. I'm not dating, not even close. Trust doesn't reset on a schedule, and I'm done rushing myself for anyone else's comfort. What I have now is quieter than the life I left. Smaller, but it's honest. I sleep through the night. I eat regular meals. I see friends I'd slowly drifted away from because he didn't approve of them. I make plans without bracing for how they'll be received. The life I'm building doesn't require permission, and that's the point.